My name was Salmon, like the fish. First name, Susie. I was 14 when I was murdered on December 6th, 1973. My murderer was a man from my neighborhood. My mother liked his border flowers, and my father talked to him once about fertilizer. My murderer believed in old-fashioned things like eggshells and coffee grounds, which he said his own mother had used. My father came home smiling, making jokes about how the man's garden might be beautiful, but it would stink to high heaven once a heat wave hit. Life is a beautiful thing, but all good things come to an end, and sometimes it ends sooner than we think. They are there, right in front of you. They are in the things you touch, the air in which you breathe, and the eyes through which you see. But all of a sudden, they simply vanish. This is a story of a girl filled with life, the most beautiful thing in existence, and of how it was stolen away from her quicker than she, or any of us, could have imagined. The Lovely Bones, by Alice Sebold. On December 6th, 1973, it was snowing and I took a shortcut back from junior high through the cornfield. The snow was falling lightly, like a flurry of small hands. 6 feet from where Mr. Harvey stood, I stuck my tongue out to taste a snowflake. Don't let me startle you. Mr. Harvey, you're the older Salmon girl, right? Yes. How are your folks? Fine. I've built something back here. Would you like to see? I'm sort of cold, Mr. Harvey, and my mom wants me home before dark. It's after dark, Susie. I wish now that I had known that this was weird. I never told him my name. I guess I thought my father had told him one of those embarrassing anecdotes he saw as merely love testaments. But, as it turned out, my father had not mentioned us to Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey said it would only take a minute, and so I followed him a little farther into the cornfield, where fewer stalks were broken off because no one used it as a shortcut to the junior high. I made a little hiding place. I don't see anything. You should be more observant, Susie. Try again. I felt like observing my way out of there, but I didn't. Why didn't I? What's that? It's wood. It keeps the entrance from collapsing. Other than that, it's all made out of wood. No. Soil. What is it? Come and see. It was awkward to get into. That much he admitted once we were both inside the hole. But I was so amazed by how he made a chimney that the awkwardness of getting in and out of the hole wasn't even on my mind. I was completely reverted. He could have been the hunchback Notre Dame, whom we had read about in French class. I didn't care. I hadn't used the word neato in public since elementary school. I can still see the hole like it was yesterday. And it was. Life is a perpetual yesterday. It was the size of the mudroom in our house, say. I could barely stand up in it. He created a bench along the sides just by the way he dug it out. Look around. I stared at it in amazement. The dugout shelf above him where he had placed matches, a row of batteries, and a battery-powered fluorescent lamp. There was a mirror on the shelf, and a razor and shaving cream. I thought that was odd. Wouldn't he do that at home? But I guess I figured that a man who had a perfectly good split level and then built an underground room only half a mile away had to be kind of Lulu. My father had a nice way of describing people like him. The man's a character, that's all. So, I guess I was thinking that Mr. Harvey was a character. And I liked the room, and it was warm. I wanted to know how he'd built it, what the mechanics of the thing were, and where he'd learned to do something like that. But by the time the Gilbert's dog found my elbow 3 days later, with a telling corn husk attached to it, Mr. Harvey had closed it up. Would you like a refreshment, Susie? I have to go home. Be polite and have a Coke. I'm sure the other kids would. What other kids? I built this for some of the other kids in the neighborhood. I thought it could be some sort of clubhouse. I thought he was lying, but I thought it was a pitiful lie. I imagined he was lonely. I felt sorry for it. Okay, I'll have a Coke. Aren't you warm, Susie? Why don't you take off your parka? You're very pretty, Susie. He gave me what my friend Clarissa dubbed the skeevies. Do you have a boyfriend? No, Mr. Harvey. I gotta go, Mr. Harvey. This is a cool place, but I gotta go. I don't know why you think you're leaving. I talked so that I would not have to take in this knowledge. Mr. Harvey was no character. He made me feel scaly and icky now that he was blocking the door. Mr. Harvey, I really have to get home. Take off your clothes. What? Take off your clothes. I want to check that you're still a virgin. I am, Mr. Harvey. I want to make sure. Your parents will thank me. My parents? They only want good girls. Mr. Harvey, please let me leave. You aren't leaving, Susie. You are mine now. I fought hard. I fought as hard as I could not to let Mr. Harvey hurt me. But my as hard as I could was not hard enough. Not even close. And soon I was lying down on the ground. In the ground. I was so alive then. I thought it was the worst thing in the world to be lying on my back with a sweating man on top of me. To be trapped inside the earth and have no one know where I was. I thought of my mother. My mother would be checking the dial of the clock on her oven. It was a new oven, and she loved that it had a clock on it. Mr. Harvey started to press his lips against mine. They were blubbery and wet, and I wanted to scream, but I was too afraid and too exhausted from the fight. Don't, Mr. Harvey, I managed. I said that word a lot, don't, and I said please a lot too. Please don't, please don't. He grew tired of hearing me plead. He reached into the pocket of my parka and balled up the hat that my mother had made me, smashing it into my mouth. The only sound I made after that was the weak tinkling of bells. I began to leave my body, began to inhabit the air and the silence. I wept and I struggled so I would not feel. Mr. Harvey made me lie still underneath him and listen to the beating of his heart and the beating of mine. As I shook, a powerful knowledge took hold. He had done this thing to me, and I had lived. That was all. I was still breathing. I heard his heart. I smelled his breath. The dark earth surrounding me smelled like what it was, moist dirt where worms and animals live their daily lives. I could have yelled for hours. I knew he was going to kill me. I did not realize then that I was an animal already dying. Why don't you get up? His voice was gentle. A lover's voice on a late morning. A suggestion, not a command. I could not move. I could not get up. It was only when I would not. Was it only that I would not follow a suggestion? That he leaned to his side and felt over his head, across the ledge, across the mirror, and pulled out a razor where the shaving cream was at. He brought back a knife. Unsheathed, it smiled at me, curving up in a grin. Tell me you love me. Gently, did. The end came anyway. Sometimes on Earth, I had my father drive me by Fairfax High School so I could imagine myself there. Following the 7th, 8th, and 9th grades of middle school, high school would have been a fresh start. I would overtake high school in a matter of days, not years, or, inexplicably, earn an Oscar for Best Actress my junior year. These were my dreams on Earth. Now I am in the place I call this wide, wide heaven, because it includes all my simplest desires, but also my most humble and grand. The word my grandfather uses is comfort. I would like to tell you that it is beautiful here, that I am and you will one day be forever safe. But this heaven is not about safety, just as in its graciousness, it is about gritty reality. And in a small house 5 miles away was a man who held my mud-encrusted charm bracelet out to his wife. Look what I found in an old industrial park. This little girl's all grown up now. Almost. Not quite. I wish you all a long and happy life.